To align your mirror system, what you must have is the tools required to loosen all the fittings on the mounts, and some masking tape or painter's tape, anything that's sticky that you're able to burn a hole into. With that, you can do everything. Now, it's also a really good idea to have some glasses that are designed for 10.6 micrometer lasers, especially if you're working with the covers open like I am. Giving your mirrors and lenses a clean before doing anything is also a good idea. I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to show it. And it's not necessary, but it is very handy to have things like some post-it notes, either set squares or engineering square, which will come in handy. Now, doing your mirrors can be very easy if you do it methodically, step by step. If you ever mess something up and need to go back, that's okay. Follow it from that step on and just continue again. I will be labeling all the steps to make sure it's easy to follow. Step 1 is to make sure your laser tube's pointing in the right direction. Now, I've got these really good covers over my mirrors that kind of show you where the middle of the mirror is. Now, for the next mirror I'll show you what to do if you don't have them, but I'm just going to keep it on for now. I'm going to put some tape over that. I'm going to fire the laser to see where it's going. Now, I find setting the power to about 30% with a 50 millisecond pulse gives a good spot. If it's not bright enough for your light, you can just keep pulsing a few times till you see it. So the laser is shooting in the middle of the mirror. That's good enough. All you need to do is make sure that the laser is just somewhere within about 3 or 4 millimeters of the center of the mirror, and it's not hitting the edges. It's only at the final head assembly where we need the laser beam to be centered. And trying to center it now is not going to help, it's not going to achieve anything. So if you see anyone that's like putting crosshairs and things over these mirrors, they don't know what they're doing. I explain on my website why you don't need to do that and why it's actually a bad idea. For now, just trust me, I'm a physicist. So the laser is pointing at our mirror. If it wasn't, you'd need to like loosen the bolts, shift it around until it was on center. But that's it, laser done. On to step 2, which is aligning this mirror. Before going on to doing the first mirror, there's one bit of theory that you need to understand. It's all the optics theory you need, and it's about the difference between direction, so that's which way the laser's pointing, and position, which is where it's shifted relative to our rail. So this is our rail. Our second mirror is going to slide across, and we want it to be hitting the mirror and going at 90 degrees true at the same position every time. So if, for example, our laser was going off alignment, not parallel with the rail, you'd see as you put your mirror across, the point where the laser hits the mirror will be shifting further across the front of the mirror as we move back and forward. Now this is how you get a skewed up alignment, and this is very likely what's happening if you get in a poor alignment. Now if our laser is running straight parallel with this rail, it doesn't matter if it's like to this bit of the rail or if its position is maybe further back here. It doesn't make a difference what position our laser beam is taking, as long as it's straight and parallel with this rail. It will always be hitting the same point on the mirror, no matter how far we slide it back and forward. So it will always be reflecting and hitting the same spot on our laser head true, no matter where we are. And we'll do some things to square up the alignment at the last mirror, but that's why at this point all we care about is being parallel to the rail. We don't really care too much about the position as long as it hits around the middle of the mirror. So normally I just put the tape straight over this hole, but I will take this cover off. So you can see the mirror. Now, even though in the mount it's set back about 1 or 2 millimeters, it's a good idea to keep your tape even a bit further clear from that. So what you might do if your mirror is bare is, with some double-sided tape, maybe make a bit of a shim on the top and the bottom with some kind of material you have lying around, just to keep the tape away. Now this mirror is a bit damaged. I'm going to replace it anyway, so for this video I'm just going to put the tape over here, and that'll be fine, but you want to be a bit more careful with a good mirror. The first thing I'll do is bring the mirror right up close and fire a pulse. So you can see where I hit the mirror there. Then what I'm going to do is fire a second pulse to see which direction it's going. Now I'm pulsing and I can't find it, so that means I'm wildly off the mark, which I expect because I deliberately screwed it up. So what you can do, if you can't find it, put something bigger like a post-it note on and really see what's happening. Okay, so I can see it's gone way off to this side down here. So what I'll do is I'll just screw the appropriate screw on that first mirror and just try to direct it towards the center again. Okay, so this should be better. So what I'm going to do now is refresh the tape, do it again. You're probably going to repeat this cycle 3 or 4 times, possibly up to a dozen if it's your first time. So I'll bring it forward, fire a pulse, send it back, fire another pulse. Okay, so now the second beam has gone to this side when it's far out. So that means I've got to tilt the mirrors to get the beam to start going a bit more in that direction. So I'm just going to tilt it and fire until I come over top of that first burn. You actually have to overshoot it a bit. Now I'll replace the tape. Still just a little bit more to that side, so I'm just going to push it in. Still a little bit too fast, so now I'm just giving like about 1/16 of a turn on that screw. It's really very fine. Okay, and that's something I'm happy with. So now I want to consider the position. So it's not quite, it's a bit off the center of the mirror, but that's okay. I mean, I can accept that. It's not scraping the edges. It's on a nice clean bit. If I didn't like the position of it, one of the options is I could undo and just physically shift this mirror side to side until I'm happy. I can also just twist all the screws on this one in and out, which will bring it back and forward. But as it is, I'll leave it. Now I've replaced this cover on this mirror. So what we're going to do now is use the screws to adjust this mirror onto our laser head. And it's going to be a very similar process, only this time we're going to start thinking about the actual position it's hitting as well. Now it doesn't really matter where you do it along this rail, because we've got this aligned nice and straight, so it should be perfect. So again, I'll place some tape, bring it close to the mirror we're aligning. I might fire a few points along the way, just to get an idea of how it's travelling. So this one here was the first pulse from up close. This one out from the side is with it all the way back. So what I've got to do is get the mirror pointing in that direction. I will try again. Okay, the spot's a little high now, so I'll just bring it down. Now at this point we're going to start thinking about centering the laser beam. So what we want to do is we want to make sure, coming out of this mirror back there, it's centered in the horizontal direction. So just roughly, I'm just going to make kind of a line here with two bits of tape by the center. So there's kind of a central line made out of tape there. And burning through the tape, I can see that the beam is just a little bit to this side of the center. We're not worried about the up and down yet, because we're going to fix that later. So the easiest thing at this point to do is to move this laser head back, and I've got some attachments that I can do that with. So I've got these bolts I can loosen, and there's a little bit of play here, so I can sort of shift it back just slightly. Then when I tighten it up, I want to make sure that my laser head assembly is straight, so I'll use a square to do that. Then tighten it back up. So with a little bit of shift, I'll test it again. And now it's right on centre. Now, if there wasn't enough movement for me to shift this back and forward, I still could have gone back to mirror 2 over there, and I could have loosened that and tried to shift that around. But if I had have done that, I would have had to go back and double check my alignment. Which is still good. So now it's on to the final step, the third mirror. Now to make things a lot easier in the long run, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all these screws in, and then I'm going to back each one out half a turn. So there's enough room to tilt them and it's still parallel. Doing this is going to make it a lot easier. It might not make a lot of sense, but it will make things a lot easier. So I'm going to place some tape, larger tape this time, right underneath. Now I'm going to lift it all up. I've got the lens and everything taken off. It's just the bare beam coming straight off the mirror and down. So if I pulse, and I'll start lowering the table, just firing more pulses along the way as I do. So I should be able to see a trend of which direction the beam is starting to pull towards. So that's about 15 to 20 centimetres of travel, and that's enough, and I can see that it's starting to go that way, so I need to tilt the mirrors so it's pointing that way. So this one, to get the mirror to point in this direction, I'm going to back this one out, and I'll just go 1/4 turn. So I'll replace this tape. And I'll start firing this time. Okay, I'm going up. I can see every time I fire, coming on the same spot. The reason it was so easy was because I turned all 3 screws in and backed them out that half turn. If you don't do that, you'll sort of end up all over the place, and you'll find you'll do this for hours. So there we go. There was only a slight shift in this direction, so that means just a little bit more. So I'll just give it maybe another 1/8 of a turn, maybe back the other ones in just a little bit, because there's not a lot of spring compression in this one. But I'm very close. There we go, that's pretty good. So just very small twists when you're adjusting this one. Okay, that's fine. So the beam is now going straight down there. Now I just need to work on the position. Now, in this direction, the position should be fine because we've already done that in the last step by doing the horizontal. What we've got to do is make sure it's okay in this direction. And I'll show you how that's done in the final step. Now, use anything you can find lying around as some kind of spacer. I'm just using a jar of coffee with some tape on it. What we want to do is, we want to bring tape right up so we're just touching the bottom. I'm just going to sort of trace the lines. So we want the beam to be centered between these two lines. I'm going to fire a pulse, bring it down. Okay, so I can see the center is about here, so it's on this side. So what I need to do is bring the beam just this direction slightly, just a tad. Now the way to do that is for this mirror to be shifted in, because if we do that, where the beam hits will be slightly higher on the mirror and it'll come slightly forward. So to bring this mirror in, what I'm going to do is each one of these 3 screws going to give just a 1/8 turn, all the same. So on all 3 of these points, it should have equally pushed it in. Now I'll just fire it and see that's starting to get a bit closer. So I'm going to do the same thing, another just 1/8 turn. Another 1/8 turn. Do it till I'm burning a hole over that. I might just restart again. Now this is really worth getting right because the more centered your laser beam is going to be on the lens, the more symmetrical your cut is going to be. So you'll be able to get really good depth in your cuts. Okay, I might even go as far as to try measuring that just to really see. That's actually not too bad. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, that's moved up more to the center. And that's that done. Now, whenever you do some kind of operation like that, you want to go back and just double check you haven't messed up your alignment. So I'm going to go back and just repeat the last step. Make sure it's okay, make sure the beam, there we go, see it's going on top of each other, it's not tracing the path. If it was, I would just make a minor tweak to put it back, then redo that step with the coffee jar. Maybe just a little bit. Okay, it's very delicate, this last step. So what you've got to do is just keep going back and forth these last 2 steps until you're really happy. Alright, so now I'm happy that the beam is coming through. It's going down exactly perpendicular to the table, and It's going to be centered on the lens, so I'm going to start getting perfect cuts all the way across the table, and that's done.